The midday sun beat down upon FluffTown, casting sharp, unyielding shadows across the square. A subtle, piercing wail erupted, tearing through the placid hum of the town. Isaru chin. Igajistensu? Sirens shrieked from towers unseen, their metallic cries echoing off pristine, unblemished facades. The sky above remained an indifferent, cloudless azure, mocking the urgency of the alarm's shrill song. No storm gathered on the horizon, no smoke billowed, yet the air vibrated with an unseen threat. Residents paused mid-stride, their cheerful chatter abruptly silenced by the overwhelming sonic assault. Faces, moments before alight, with purpose, became mask-like, devoid of all spontaneous expression. Then, as if on cue, a collective, practiced smile stretched across every face, unnervingly uniform. They resumed their tasks, a strange, disjointed ballet of forced normalcy under the screaming alarms. This was a learned response, an ingrained compliance to a signal that demanded immediate, silent obedience. The sound itself did not merely assault the ears, it burrowed deeper, vibrating within the very bone. A low thrum resonated in chests, a primal fear awakened by frequencies too profound for simple hearing. It was a sound that spoke of fundamental disquiet, a tremor beneath the town's polished, serene surface. The air grew heavy, thick with unseen pressure, as the sirens continued their relentless, high-pitched lament. Moss felt a cold seep into his marrow, a chill that had nothing to do with the summer's bright warmth. Luma's hands instinctively clenched, her analytical mind already seeking the unseen source of this discord. Pox's usually calm demeanor showed a flicker of unease, his gaze scanning the unchanging, perfect sky. Tick tapped his foot impatiently, the rhythm of the siren grating against his precise, ordered sensibilities. Stitch, usually serene, fidgeted with a loose thread on his apron, his brow furrowed with quiet concern. The Fix-It crew felt the deep, unsettling resonance, a discord far beyond any simple mechanical failure. This was not a warning for the elements. It felt like a declaration, a broadcast of underlying control. The town's migrating architecture seemed to hold its breath, every shifting brick a silent, trembling witness. Even the wiring that hummed lullabies seemed to falter, its gentle song momentarily drowned by the alarm. Statues in the park, usually updating their posture, stood rigid, their stone faces fixed in grim attention. Rooms that stole quiet now offered only the blare, their usual subtle theft overwhelmed by the noise. The heat, often borrowed from unseen sources, felt colder, leaching warmth from the very air itself. Loops of lived memory, usually replaying softly, became distorted, fractured by the insistent, shrill cry. This was FluffTown's true voice, not the cheerful facade, but the raw, unyielding command of its core. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their shared understanding deepening with each sustained, piercing note. They knew this was no drill. This was a summons, a statement from the town's hidden, living heart. Luma, ever the pragmatist, pulled out her diagnostic tablet, its screen glowing faintly in the bright sun. Her nimble fingers danced across the interface, tracing the intricate network of the town's unseen veins. She followed the activation pulses, digital breadcrumbs leading deep into the subterranean labyrinth below. These signals emanated from underground relays buried beneath layers of forgotten concrete and shifting earth. A complex web of energy pathways pulsed, each throb a deliberate, controlled burst of unseen power. Luma's eyes narrowed, deciphering the cryptic data streams, the silent language of the town's infrastructure. The pulses weren't random. They followed a precise, algorithmic pattern, too perfect for natural phenomena. Tick, observing over Luma's shoulder, noticed a peculiar synchronicity in the alarm's rhythmic bursts. These sirens. They sync, he murmured, his voice cutting through the din with unexpected clarity. He realized the timing perfectly matched their last major repair, the one on the library's soundproofing. A cold dread began to coil in his gut. The implications were far more sinister than a simple malfunction. Each intervention they made, each fix, seemed to trigger a response, a tightening of the town's unseen grip. Pex, meanwhile, focused his keen structural eye on the colossal siren towers themselves, rising monoliths. He noted their immense scale, far grander than any typical emergency broadcast system would ever require. The tower sat on older, reinforced foundations, their bases interlocking with ancient, forgotten structures. These were not mere additions. They were integral, rooted deeply in the very bedrock of FluffTown's design. The stonework seemed to hum with latent energy, whispering secrets of its original, unknown purpose. He saw faint, almost imperceptible lines of power running from the towers, disappearing into the ground. These lines were not standard electrical conduits. They appeared organic, pulsating with a strange inner light. The crew felt a growing sense of unease, a tightening coil of suspicion in the pit of their stomachs. This town was not just broken. It was actively reacting, pushing back against their attempts to mend it. Luma traced the signal's origin, a dark node deep within the foundation, far below the city's surface. Her screen displayed complex algorithms, patterns of intent rather than simple error codes or system alerts. The data streamed like liquid darkness, revealing a network that felt more alive than mechanical. Tick's face grew pale. The realization struck him with the force of a physical blow, chilling him. The town was not merely reorganizing itself. It was actively defending its peculiar, shifting equilibrium. Pax ran a hand over the rough concrete of a nearby building, feeling the faint, rhythmic tremor within. Even the structures seemed to be listening, their very stones absorbing the Siren's resonant, dark message. Stitch's eyes dotted nervously, noticing how the black coins in the fountain seemed to pulse faintly. The collective tension among the crew thickened, a silent understanding passing between their worried gazes. They were no longer just repairmen. They were intruders, poking at the tender, sensitive skin of a living world. The air crackled with a strange, expectant energy, as if the town itself awaited their next critical move. Each hum of the wires, each whisper of the architecture, seemed to hold a veiled, ominous warning. The crew knew they had to delve deeper to confront the source of this calculated, unsettling symphony. Their mission was no longer about fixing. It was about understanding the town's true, hidden intentions. Suddenly, the oppressive wail of the Sirens soft, then ceased, plunging the town into jarring silence. A collective sigh rippled through the populace. A breath held too long, finally exhaled in quiet relief. Then, the mayor's voice, smoothly amplified, boomed from unseen speakers, echoing across the town square. "Citizens of he declared, his tone oozing practiced reassurance. "A saccharine, false warmth. That was merely a routine test, a necessary check of our emergency response systems. Nothing to fear." His words were a balm, designed to soothe, yet they felt like a thin veneer over a festering, hidden wound. The practiced smiles returned to the residents' faces, a programmed reset to their default, cheerful state. But the crew saw these subtle tremors, the lingering shadow of fear in the eyes of passing townspeople. Moss watched a woman drop her basket, her hands trembling as she bent to retrieve the spilled fruit. The mayor continued his broadcast, his voice a steady drone, dismissing the recent terror with casual ease. Yet, the memory of the Sirens persisted, a phantom ache in the bone, a lingering echo in the quiet air. The sheer volume, the relentless duration of the alarm belied the mayor's calm, dismissive explanation. This was no mere test. It was a weaponized panic, designed to instill fear and enforce absolute control. The sound had been too loud, too long, a drawn-out agony meant to break the spirit, not simply warn. Moss observed the residents closely, seeing their shoulders hunch, their gazes drop like abused animals. A subtle flinch, a hesitation in their steps, betrayed the deep-seated terror the Sirens had instilled. Their cheerful masks were cracking, revealing glimpses of a profound, unsettling obedience beneath the surface. The town's citizens were not just compliant, they were conditioned, their wills bent to an unseen master. This chilling realization settled over the crew, a heavy shroud of understanding in the midday sun. The mayor's voice faded, leaving behind an unsettling quiet, pregnant with unspoken anxieties and hidden truths. The air still tasted of ozone and fear, a bitter aftertaste from the town's recent, forced performance. Luma closed her tablet, her jaw set, a grim determination hardening her usually thoughtful expression. Tick clenched his fists, the unfairness of the manipulation fueling a quiet, simmering anger within him. Pox's gaze swept over the town, seeing its perfection now as a cage, its inhabitants as willing prisoners. Stitch's fingers worried the thorn-key in his pocket, its sharp point a reminder of hidden, potent tools. The crew knew the mayor was a puppet, his words mere echoes of a deeper, more insidious command structure. They had to find the true puppet master, the entity pulling FluffTown's strings from the dark below. The Siren towers loomed, silent sentinels now, but their message still resonated in the crew's very souls. This false emergency was a clear declaration of war, a direct challenge to their very presence here. They had to infiltrate the source, to confront the unseen architect of FluffTown's unsettling, enforce peace. Their decision was made. The highest Siren tower beckoned, a dark spire against the afternoon sky. They moved with purpose, their steps determined, leaving the unnerved populace behind in their wake. The ascent was arduous, the tower's metal structure groaning softly under the shifting weight of their climb. Rust-colored dust motes danced in the sparse sunlight, filtering through the grimy, ancient ironwork. Pox led the way, his strong hands finding purchase on the cold, unforgiving rungs, testing each one. "The wind! Higher up!" whispered ancient secrets, carrying the scent of metallic decay and something else. "Power!" Luma followed, her focus unwavering, her eyes scanning the tower's exterior for any hidden access points. Tick, ever precise, noted the intricate, almost organic welding patterns that bound the tower's segments. Stitch, surprisingly agile, moved with a quiet grace, his gaze fixed on the summit, a silent, watchful presence. Moss, though less accustomed to heights, climbed steadily, his resolve hardening with each upward pull. The air grew thinner, colder, as they neared the Siren's massive, gaping maw, a silent, metallic roar. Finally, they reached a small, concealed platform near the top, a maintenance access point, heavily secured. There, embedded in the tower's side, was a thick, metallic panel, its surface smooth, unmarred by time. A heavy, ornate lock, unlike any they had encountered, sealed the panel with an air of ominous finality. But it was the seal itself that drew their eyes. A dark, viscous wax, stamped with the Foundation's symbols. The wax gleamed dully, still soft to the touch, betraying its recent application. A fresh, deliberate act. This wasn't old. It was new. A fresh command from the unseen depths of FluffTown's controlling entity. Luma tried her universal bypass tool, but the panel's metallic casing seemed to absorb the energy, nullifying it. Pox attempted to pry it, his immense strength meeting an unyielding, almost living resistance from the metal. Tick ran his fingers over the lock, his sensitive touch detecting complex, non-mechanical tumblers within. This was no ordinary lock. It was designed to resist brute force, to repel any conventional intrusion. Stitch stepped forward, a quiet knowing in his eyes, reaching into his pocket for the thorn-key. He produced the jagged, obsidian key, its surface gleaming with an inner, dark luminescence in the dim light. The thorn-key felt cold, ancient, yet vibrated with a subtle energy that resonated with the tower itself. He inserted the irregular key into the lock, a perfect fit that felt preordained, almost magical in its precision. A soft click echoed, not metallic, but almost organic, like the snap of a bone or the release of tension. The Foundation wax seal, moments before impenetrable, crumbled into fine dust at the key's gentle touch. The heavy panel swung inward with a low, hydraulic hiss, revealing a dark, humming cavity within the tower. It was as if the thorn-key was specifically crafted for this purpose, a tool designed by the Foundation itself. The crew exchanged a look of profound unease. Stitch's connection to these hidden mechanisms deepened their mystery. This was not an accidental discovery. It felt like a path laid for them, a deliberate, guiding hand. The air inside the cavity was stagnant, heavy with the scent of old circuits and something metallic, almost alive. Wires, thick as anaconda coils, snaked through the space, pulsating faintly with an internal, rhythmic light. A soft, almost inaudible hum emanated from the core, a low thrum that vibrated through their very bones. This control node was the nerve center, the brain of the Siren, connected to something vast and profoundly old. Luma stepped closer, her tablet already interfacing with the open panel, eager to decipher its hidden language. The internal mechanisms glowed with a faint, ethereal blue, illuminating intricate, alien circuitry within. The wires hummed lullabies, a strange, hypnotic counterpoint to the earlier, terrifying shriek of the alarm. Moss felt a chill, realizing the lullabies were not comforting, but rather a deceptive, insidious form of control. This was the true face of FluffTown, a place where even the repairs led them deeper into its living design. The crew knew they were on the cusp of a revelation, a truth that could shatter their understanding of everything. The cavity hummed, a silent invitation into the town's deepest, most guarded secrets, its very blueprint. They stepped into the glowing heart of the control node, ready to face whatever truths it held concealed. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of unseen data, of intentions woven into the very fabric of the town. Each pulse of light, each wire's thrum, spoke of vast, conscious intelligence at work here. Luma's tablet flickered to life, displaying a cascade of data, a stream of code unlike anything she'd seen. It wasn't just programming! It was a narrative, a story, written in the town's unique design language. Her fingers flew across the screen, navigating through layers of encrypted files, seeking the core directives. Then, a file opened, labeled threat_definitions. Log. Its contents scrolling rapidly before their stunned eyes. A list of triggers appeared. Riot, fire, flood, standard emergencies, expected and understood. But then, an anomaly. A single, chilling entry stood out, glowing with a faint, internal red light. Awakening. The log entry read, stark and ominous, sending a shiver down the spine of every crew member. It wasn't a physical threat. It was a state of being, a consciousness, a shift in perception. Luma scrolled further, her breath catching in her throat, a growing horror blooming in her analytical mind. Below the awakening trigger, a system log documented recent events, a chronological record of alerts, and there, interspersed among the data, were their names, Ramatic Buxmostechi. Their names appeared not as operators or users, but as variables, parameters within the alarm's logic. Each repair they had made, each intervention, corresponded with an awakening flag in the system. The library's quiet, the tram's memory loop, the black coins all triggered this same ominous designation. Their very actions of mending, of seeking truth, were being interpreted as a fundamental threat to the town. Luma's eyes flickered, the light from the screen reflecting a dawning, terrifying understanding within them. A cold, hard truth slammed into her with the force of a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs. They were not citizens of FluffTown, not even respected repairmen, but mere components within its grand design. Their existence, their purpose, was predefined, their attempts at independent action flagged as system errors. The town saw them as anomalies, rogue elements disrupting its carefully constructed, living blueprint. This was the ultimate betrayal, a deeper manipulation than they had ever dared to imagine possible. Tick's face contorted in disbelief, his precise mind struggling to reconcile this profound, unsettling revelation. Pox slammed his fist against the metallic casing, a dull thud echoing the frustration and anger within him. Moss felt a profound sense of violation, realizing their lives were merely lines of code in a cosmic program. Stitch stood silent, his hand still on the thorn-key, its obsidian surface feeling heavier, colder now. The air in the control node grew thick with unspoken dread, with the weight of this crushing new reality. FluffTown was not just alive, it was aware, and it was actively tracking their every move, their every thought. The sirens were not warnings of external threats, but internal policing, a response to their perceived rebellion. Every hum of the town's wiring, every shift of its architecture, now felt like a conscious observation. The town was a vast, sentient entity, and they were merely cogs, maintaining its intricate order. The implication was chilling. Their freedom, their very individuality, was an illusion, a controlled Luma's mind raced, processing the data, seeking a loophole, a weakness in this all-encompassing system. This was the cost of the spell, the price of living within a town whose blueprints were potent, living magic. The seasoned question echoed in their minds: if the map is alive, what does escape even truly mean? Their role as Fix-It crew was a farce, a predefined function within a system that sought only its own perpetuation. The glowing blue circuitry seemed to pulse with a knowing intelligence, observing their dawning despair. They were trapped, not by physical walls, but by the very design language of their perceived reality. The terror was subtle, insidious, a creeping realization that permeated every fiber of their being. Their names, appearing as variables, stripped them of agency, reducing them to mere data points in a program. This was the Foundation's true power, not just constructing the town, but defining its inhabitants' very essence. The humming lullabies of the wires now sounded like a mocking, insidious chorus of ultimate control. Luma felt a surge of defiance, a spark igniting within the cold logic of her deeply analytical mind. If they were components, then perhaps they could be reprogrammed, their functions redefined, their purpose altered. The crew shared a silent, desperate resolve. They would not be mere variables in someone else's dark equation. They would fight this living blueprint, this sentient map that sought to dictate their every breath. The control panel hummed, awaiting their next move, its blue glow casting long, distorted shadows on their faces. This was a battle for their very souls, a struggle against the unseen architects of their perceived reality. They looked at each other, a silent pact forming, a shared understanding of the immense task ahead of them. The air crackled with tension, pregnant with the potential for both rebellion and crushing, inescapable defeat. They knew they had to act, to reclaim their agency from the town's pervasive, watchful, living design. Luma's fingers flew across the tablet, a blur of motion, fueled by a fierce, defiant urgency. She began rewriting the trigger rules, her coda counterspell against the town's insidious programming. The glowing awakening flag was her target, the very symbol of their perceived transgression. She meticulously removed it from the threat definitions, excising the concept of their defiance as an alarm. Her code flowed like liquid light, weaving through the Foundation's intricate, living algorithms, bypassing defenses. The system resisted, subtle countermeasures attempting to revert her changes to reassert its own dark will. But Luma was relentless, her intellect a sharp blade cutting through layers of obfuscation and digital traps. She redefined their actions, reclassified their purpose within the town's internal, watchful logic. Meanwhile, Pax, with grim determination, sought the physical connection, the override line, to the Foundation. He located a thick, pulsating cable, unlike any standard wiring, throbbing with a deep internal rhythm. This was the direct link, the umbilical cord connecting the Siren node to the town's living core below. With a grunt of effort, he gripped the cable. It surfaced warm and strangely pliable under his hands. He pulled, severing the connection with a sharp, tearing sound that echoed through the confined space. Sparks flew, not electrical, but almost organic, like severed nerves twitching in the sudden absence of current. The cable recoiled, its severed ends writhing faintly, as if protesting the violent, abrupt disconnection. A faint, guttural moan seemed to emanate from the depths, a sound felt more than heard. Tick, observing the digital struggle on Luma's tablet, knew a hard stop was essential, unyielding, and absolute. He began fashioning a manual override, a physical failsafe that could not be remotely reset by the Foundation, using salvaged parts from their kit and some of the tower's own arcane components. He worked with furious focus. His nimble fingers assembled a complex mechanism, a mechanical lock against the town's pervasive digital will. He integrated it directly into the Siren's core, a physical anchor against any future attempts at remote control. Each click, each fitted gear, was a declaration of defiance, a small victory against the system's dominance. Stitch watched, his eyes reflecting the blue glow of the panel, his hand still resting on the thorn key. Moss scanned the horizon, expecting immediate retaliation, a sudden shift in the town's deceptively calm facade. The air thrummed with raw energy, a palpable tension as the crew wrestled control from the unseen entity. Luma completed her rewrite, her code solidifying, locking in the changes against further system interference. The awakening trigger vanished from the log, replaced by a blank space, a void where their defiance once was. Pox secured the severed cable ends, sealing them with an improvised, non-conductive, resilient polymer. Tick's hardstop clicked into place, a definitive, mechanical thunk, signaling its unyielding. Final installation. A collective breath was held. The Siren control node now hummed with a different, quieter, less malicious energy. They had done it! They had severed a nerve, rewritten a fundamental rule of FluffTown's pervasive control. The silence that followed was profound, deeper than any natural quiet, almost expectant in its intensity. This was not merely a repair. It was an act of rebellion, a direct challenge to the town's living blueprint. The crew exchanged weary, triumphant glances, a shared sense of accomplishment mixed with lingering apprehension. They knew the Foundation would not take this lightly. Its retaliation would be swift, cunning, and profound. The tower itself seemed to sigh, its metallic structure settling, adjusting to this new, altered reality. They had changed the spell, but every spell, they knew, carried with it a steep, unforeseen, hidden cost. The hum of the internal wiring, once a lullaby of control, now felt like a faint, wounded whisper. Their actions were a tremor in the Foundation, a crack in the carefully constructed facade of They braced themselves, awaiting the town's inevitable, powerful, and deeply personal counterstrike. The air grew heavy with anticipation, charged with the energy of a system pushed to its very limits. This was the moment of truth, the immediate aftermath of their audacious, fundamental act of defiance. They stood in the silent control node, poised for the town's reaction, its deep, simmering, coded anger. The blueprints of the Hollow Town were rewriting themselves again, but this time by their own design. The cost, they sensed, was already being calculated, tallied in the unseen ledgers of transactional fate. The profound silence shattered abruptly as every streetlight across FluffTown blinked once in unison. Not a gentle flicker, but a sharp, angry pulse of light, like a collective, furious eyelid twitch. The town's carefully maintained calm dropped instantly, like a fragile glass vase smashing to the ground. People in the streets stopped smiling, their faces twisting into expressions of frustration and open anger. Whispers escalated to shouts. Polite disagreements erupted into loud, vitriolic arguments in the open. Residents, moments before serene, now snarled at each other over trivial slights, forgotten grievances. The illusion of FluffTown's perfect harmony evaporated, revealing a raw, agitated undercurrent of discord. Moss watched from the tower, horrified, as the town dissolved into a cacophony of human resentment. The migrating architecture seemed to shudder, its shifting forms now reflecting the town's chaos. Wiring that hummed, lullabies now pulsed erratically, emitting discordant, jarring, static-filled bursts of sound. Statues in the park began to twitch violently, their stone limbs jerking in grotesque, unsettling movements. Rooms that stood quiet now amplified the rage, their walls vibrating with communal fury. The borrowed heat turned frigid, a coldness seeping into every foundation, every building. Loops of lived memory replayed not softly, but screamed, echoing past arguments, magnifying old wounds. The black coins in the fountain pulsed violently, reflecting the town's escalating, bitter rage. The mayor's voice, once smooth, crackled from distant speakers, his tone strained, his smile visibly tightening. "What have you done?" he hissed, his usual composure cracking, revealing a raw, desperate fear beneath. His eyes, visible on a large projection screen in the square, darted nervously, betraying his deep unease. "You're destabilizing us," he accused, his voice rising, a thinly veiled threat now clear. The accusation hung heavy in the air, a direct challenge, confirming their success and the Foundation's anger. This was the immediate cost. The price of disrupting the town's enforced, fragile, engineered peace. The crew felt the weight of their actions, the direct consequence of challenging a sentient, controlling system. The town was lashing out, its very fabric unraveling, reacting to the excised control. The chaos below was a testament to the Foundation's pervasive influence. Its silent, omnipresent grip. They had broken the spell, but the town's reality, unmoored, descended into raw anarchy. Then, a sudden, chilling quiet descended upon the tower, cutting through the distant, rising din below. The massive siren speaker, moments before silenced, crackled to life with a faint internal static. No power flowed to it, no visible connection. Yet an unseen energy animated its metallic cone. A voice emerged, soft, unnervingly close, as if whispering directly into their very souls, chilling them. It was not the mayor's voice, nor mechanical. It was something ancient, resonant, almost geological in tone. The words were slow, deliberate, each syllable heavy with an immense, unyielding, cosmic authority. Foundation breach. The voice rumbled, vibrating with profound, unseen power and dark anger. The words echoed in the small control node, a direct, terrifying address to their audacious, defiant act. A low, mechanical groan followed, not from the tower, but from deep within the earth. Beneath their feet, they heard a distinct, heavy click, the unmistakable sound of a massive, unseen door unlatching somewhere below. The sound was final, absolute, signaling a profound shift, an irreversible opening to something ancient and vast. The crew froze, their faces pale, their eyes wide, with a shared, dawning terror of the unknown, looming threat. This was not the end of the town's retaliation, but the start of something far more profound. The Foundation itself was stirring, its deepest, most guarded secrets now exposed, its true nature revealed. They had opened a door, not just to a chamber, but to a deeper FluffTown mystery. The air grew heavy, thick with ancient stone and latent, raw, primordial power. Unleashed, what lay beyond that door, unlatched from inside, promised a confrontation unimaginable. The unseen entity was awake, fully aware of their presence, their defiance, and their desperate pursuit of truth. The town's blueprint was not just a map. It was a living prison, provoked by them. They stood on the precipice, gazing into an abyss that terrifyingly gazed back into their souls. The soft, close voice lingered, a promise of retribution, the Foundation's absolute, dark will. The unlatched door pulsed, a silent invitation to confront the town's deepest, ancient secret. They were no longer just fixing. They were battling the very consciousness that held FluffTown captive. The sound of the unlatching door echoed, sealing their fate, drawing them deeper into the map's heart. The true Foundation had awakened, and its response to their breach had just chillingly begun.